All right, get ready for a deep dive that's a little, well, let's just say it's a bit on the spicy side today.
Oh, going there, are we?
You bet. We've gotten some listener submissions, and they're all about cunnilingus. Sounds like someone's ready to move beyond Cunnilingus 101.
I can already tell this is going to be interesting.
And honestly, who isn't curious about this, right? I mean, it's one of those things people don't always talk about openly.
Yeah, it's like this weird taboo, Everybody wants to be good at it, but nobody wants to admit they're trying to, level up their skills.
Exactly. And you know what really struck me when we were going through the material?
What's that?
It's how much emphasis there is on cunnilingus as being, the key to female orgasm.
Really? Even more so than,
Yeah. Even more than intercourse. Apparently, a whopping 83% of women find it more satisfying.
Wow, 83%. That's a pretty compelling statistic.
It really makes you think, right? And speaking of things that make you think, it seems like there are a few myths surrounding female orgasm that we need to, totally debunk.
Oh, I'm always up for a good myth-busting session. Lay it on me.
Well, hold your horses. We'll get there. First, I'm really curious about these techniques for, shall we say, optimizing the experience.
Optimizing. I like the way you think. So what kind of techniques are we talking about?
The book goes into some pretty fascinating detail, actually.
Oh, I bet it does. Fill me in.
One thing that really resonated with me was how they compare a woman's arousal to a slow-burning fire. Not exactly like flipping a light switch, right?
Definitely not. It's more like, slowly turning up the heat, building the intensity.
I love how the book puts it, like an oven dial, slowly going from 0 to 10.
That's a great analogy.
Right. And here's where things get really interesting to me. The book really stresses that it's important to explore beyond just the clitoris.
Really? Can you elaborate on that?
Well, it seems like there's this tendency to just focus on the clitoris, right? But this book is advocating for, exploring and stimulating all the different areas of the vagina.
Oh, interesting. So it's about building anticipation and sensitivity before, going straight for the main event.
Yeah, exactly. It's like creating a more holistic experience rather than just, zeroing in on one specific spot.
I see. So it's all about, recognizing the interconnectedness of pleasure and how stimulating different areas can create a much more intense experience overall.
Exactly. And speaking of techniques, I was particularly intrigued by this one they call the ice cream technique.
The ice cream technique.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, the name kind of made me giggle a little bit, but the actual concept is pretty interesting.
Okay, I'm definitely curious now. What is this ice cream technique all about?
So basically, it involves using your tongue in a sweeping motion, starting from the base of the vagina and moving upwards.
Yeah.
Building that gradual crescendo of sensation.
I see where they get the ice cream part from. It's like that slow, teasing lick you give an ice cream cone, savoring every bit.
Yes, exactly. It's that whole teasing and tantalizing thing, building anticipation with every lick. And then, get this, the book also talks about another technique called the O shape.
The O shape. Okay, you're just full of surprises today.
No, right?
Yeah.
I have to confess, I chuckled a little when I first read that one, too.
Well, there's a method to the madness, I'm sure. So enlighten me. What's the O shape all about?
Basically, it involves shaping your mouth into an O to fully engulf the.
I see. So it's all about finding what works best for both partners and communicating openly to make sure everyone is happy and, satisfied.
You got it. And that actually brings us to a really important point that's emphasized throughout the whole book. Communication is absolutely key.
Communication is key. For something that seems so obvious, it's amazing how often people forget about it in the heat of the moment.
Right. It's so easy to get caught up in the moment and forget to, check in with your partner and make sure they're enjoying themselves, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's not just about knowing the techniques. It's about creating a safe and comfortable space for open dialogue and really being present with your partner.
Precisely. It's about prioritizing her comfort and pleasure above all else. So we've talked techniques and, how to read those nonverbal cues. But this whole idea of the, the selfish lover thing, that really got me thinking.
Oh, yeah. What about it?
Well, the book's saying that a man should actually, express his own enjoyment during cunnilingus. Isn't that kind of, counterintuitive?
Well, it might seem that way at first, but think about it. I mean, wouldn't it be kind of weird if you were just totally indifferent?
Right, like you're just going through the motions or something.
Exactly. And for a lot of women, knowing that their partner is genuinely enjoying it can be, let's just say it adds a whole other level to the experience.
So, moaning, gasping,
Hmm.
maybe even a little appreciative whisper here and there. It's not just about being polite. It's actually enhancing things for both people.
Exactly. It's about creating that feedback loop, that shared sense of pleasure. And it ties back into what we were talking about earlier about mental and emotional stimulation being just as important as the physical stuff.
Oh, right. It's all connected, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, yeah, instead of being a selfish lover, it's actually more generous to let your partner know how much you're enjoying yourself.
I like that. So it's all about sharing the experience fully, physically and emotionally. And speaking of emotional connection, remember those myths we're going to debunk?
Oh, yeah. The orgasm question was a big one.
Right, but there were a few others in there too, and one that really stood out to me was this idea that there's like this magic formula for female orgasm.
Yeah.
Like there's this one button you push and boom, fireworks.
Yeah, no, that's definitely not how it works. Everyone experiences pleasure differently. What works for one person might not work for another, and what works one day might not work the next.
So it's all about embracing that individuality.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. There's no right or wrong answer here. The key is communication, experimentation, and a willingness to explore.
So it's about approaching intimacy with a sense of, I don't know, curiosity, playfulness even.
Exactly. And that sense of playfulness can actually be really liberating.
Speaking of journeys, this seems like this book is trying to like elevate cunnilingus beyond just a physical act, wouldn't you say?
It is. It's really emphasizing how cunnilingus, when done right, can be this deeply intimate and connecting experience.
Yeah, it's like the difference between, I don't know, just reading a book and actually like immersing yourself in the story,
Yeah.
feeling the emotions, connecting with the characters.
Perfect analogy. It's about creating that same level of immersion in your intimate life, exploring the depths of sensation, emotion, connection.
That's beautifully put. So it's not just about what you do with your tongue. It's about the intention behind it, the connection, the willingness to be present with your partner.
Precisely. And when you can achieve that level of intimacy, that's when the magic really happens.
So we've talked techniques, we debunked some myths, we've explored all these emotional and psychological layers that make this about so much more than just the physical act. But what's the bigger takeaway here? Like, what does this all mean for our listener who's obviously interested in, taking this journey?
I think the most important takeaway is that mastering cunnilingus, or any intimate act for that matter, isn't about following some set of instructions or like memorizing a bunch of techniques. It's about embarking on this journey of exploration, communication, and mutual pleasure.
It's about being present, being attentive, and being open to discovering what really works for you and your partner.
And it's about being willing to be vulnerable, to communicate your own needs and desires, and to just embrace the fact that pleasure is a journey, not a destination.
So we're talking about like a whole shift in how we think about intimacy and pleasure,
Yeah.
right? It's bigger than just the bedroom.
100%. This whole deep dive into cunnilingus, it's really about something much bigger. It's challenging that idea that physical technique is all that matters for sexual satisfaction.
Right, because for a lot of women, it's about feeling desired, seen.
Yeah.
Like you're not just a body,
Exactly. Feeling connected on a deeper level. And this source material, it really highlights how important mental and emotional stimulation are too. For a lot of women, that's just as crucial as the physical stuff.
Which makes you wonder, do we sometimes get so caught up in the mechanics of it all that we forget about that emotional connection?
It happens. But yeah, this deep dive, it's a good reminder to bring that back, to create a dynamic, to communicate, to be like emotionally intelligent about intimacy. And not just this one act, but like as a whole.
So where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for our listener who's clearly ready to, put all this into practice?
Well, I think the book gave us a great place to start, right? It reminded us that mastering this, or any intimate act really, it's not about memorizing a list of instructions. It's about approaching it as a journey.
A journey of exploration, communication.
And mutual pleasure. Don't forget that part.
Right, of course. But it's also about being present, being attentive to your partner, and being open to discovering what really creates that spark.
What really ignites that desire and connection, both in yourself and your partner.
It strikes me that this whole conversation has been about so much more than just one specific act. Like, we've really gone deep on intimacy and connection and what it means to experience pleasure in our lives.
We really have. It's amazing how these conversations can unfold, right?
It really is. So to everyone listening, we hope this deep dive has given you a lot to think about. Remember, the best experiences, they often come from a place of open communication, a willingness to experiment, and a whole lot of respect for yourself and for your partner.